started the recording of our workshop. Let me share the screen with the agenda, just share. So that's the wrong one. This is the correct one. So we're starting our workshop on sustainable energy policies and implementation of national sustainable energy action plans. And very happy to see all of you at this event, virtual event. And we were hoping from last year that we can have an in-person event, but that unfortunately did not happen. So we'll do it online, and we hope it will still be interesting and useful for all of you. And
Greg, you're muted.
Okay. And for without further ado, we will open the workshop, and the first welcome address will come from Mr. Scott Foster, Director of the UNECE Sustainable Energy Division. Thank you. Let me stop sharing my screen. Okay. Scott, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Oleg was not muted, as it turns out. What I had done was mute original audio and then cut him off. So if you can't hear me, that's the issue that's going on. I'm actually really pleased to participate in this workshop on sustainable energy policies and implementation of national energy, sustainable energy action plans. The timing of this is actually really perfect. As you all know, we've just come through the high-level dialogue on energy at the end of September. That happened the same week as our committee on sustainable energy. And then we've just come out of COP26, where I brought back something more than I went with, hence my voice is a bit shot. So the timing of this is really perfect. And I'd just like to make a few remarks to get us going. Really, the high-level dialogue on energy was focused on SDG 7 and all of the plans and programs that countries are putting in place to achieve SDG 7. And then COP26, as we all know, is about climate and what are we going to do to deal with the climate issues. There was an agreement coming out of Glasgow. It was more moderate than some would have liked to have had, but it really does reflect all of the tensions and challenges that we face. And I'd like to come back to that in a second. The outcome of both of those is really a highlighting that we need to have integrated solutions. We can't do just one or just the other. We've got to meet quality of life and aspirations, and we've got to deliver on the climate agenda, or else we're in deep stuff, shall we say. Now, there are a couple of events that have happened recently that are really focusing attention. One is what's going on with energy prices. And if you look at energy supply, there have been issues. When you look at transmission and storage, there have been issues. And you look at the demand side, there have been issues. And in fact, I think nobody really expected after COVID, presuming we're after COVID, that there would be such a quick uptick in energy consumption. And in fact, we all talk about Build Back Better. We seem to have gone back to our previous course pretty quickly, both in terms of emissions and in terms of energy consumption. The second thing, other than, before we leave that, when you look at the pricing issue, you instantly recognize that people are focused on affordability and they're focused on resilience. So energy security has moved right back up to the top of the agenda. On the second angle, which is looking at what happens when the renewables aren't producing as expected, when there's been a drop-off in renewable output, renewable production, invariably, who steps in? It's going to be coal or gas coming in. That really highlights this tension between Are we going to be doing one thing or the other in terms of climate change? And I would like to argue that keeping the lights on remains the priority. So if that's the priority, and we face an existential threat for with climate change, that resolution really becomes critical. A second point I'd like to raise relates to COVID, and we've come through 1, 2, 3, and now we're into the 4th wave of COVID. And in my opinion, it really highlights the value of cooperation. It highlights the value of cooperation. And it does that valuing by demonstrating what happens if you get it wrong. If we aren't sharing our capacity, if we aren't sharing our knowledge, our ability to deliver coherent outcomes is really limited. So I think we should think through the lessons of what that means, whether it's on a regional basis or on a UNECE-wide basis or globally. There's got to be a better way. It boils down to trust in institutions and fair sharing, open sharing of information and capacity. Now, this summer, our executive secretary sent out 2 documents to member states, and we've been sharing it kind of everywhere on the subway walls. One of them is a commitment trifecta, where we say if we do the following 3 things, we can make real progress towards the 2030 agenda and towards the Paris Agreement. The first one on the top of the list is high performance buildings. A number of you have been involved with us on the high performance buildings. If 40% of CO2 emissions come because of the energy services that buildings require, getting that right would make a huge effect. And that would be an easy one. The second one then is managing methane, where 50% of methane emissions can be managed and controlled economically. So it's a bit of a no-brainer, and a global methane pledge was put forward at COP. The third one then is sustainable resource management, and simply putting in place a system of managing and optimizing resources in line with the 2030 agenda and in line with the Paris Agreement. So with those 3 actions near term, we could make a huge impact. The second paper that came out, which we call a push to pivot, are sort of longer term issues of how are we going to be getting to our destination. The first one is working to achieve carbon neutrality. And if we're going to achieve carbon neutrality, we've got to stop being purely politically correct. We've got to recognize what are the options that are out there. And I'm pointing my finger directly at nuclear. I'm pointing my finger directly at carbon capture and storage. We can't simply reject these options because many countries depend on them. So it's got to be an integrated solution. It has to be pragmatic. It has to be agnostic. Let's find the least cost and the fastest carbon pathway that meets the pathway to quality of life. The second item then is about just transition. And I'm sure you've all heard about this, but when you think about the significant urban and industrial ecosystems that have emerged around the primary fuels, you can't pretend you're Thanos, snap your finger and have it just disappear. We've got to find a way to bring those communities along, to deliver to them the quality of life. We can't just create economic ghettos around what we depended on in the past. So that management of a just transition is critically important for 2 reasons. The first reason is that's the right thing to do. The second thing is it would remove a significant socioeconomic barrier. And because it's a socioeconomic barrier, it's a political barrier to actually doing the transition. So just transition would be the second one. Not easy, but it must be done. And then the final one is what we call set the stage for a hydrogen ecosystem. And everybody's talking about hydrogen, hydrogen, hydrogen. Well over 90% of hydrogen today is produced from fossil. So there's a debate about green hydrogen, yellow hydrogen, black hydrogen. If we want to set the stage for a hydrogen economy, we should think more in terms of photons, electrons, and molecules in an integrated way and use the existing infrastructure to the extent we can to deliver a pathway that makes sense. So we say hydrogen, but really it's gases and electrons working in collaboration. So that's a lot in just a few moments. I appreciate the opportunity from Oleg to make a few opening remarks. This workshop and the dialogue is extremely well timed, and it's asking all the right questions. And if we could find a way to move this whole thing forward, that would be great. I look forward to some robust outcomes. Oleg, back over to you.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you. Thank you for this opening. And this is, as you all know, a joint workshop of UN Economic Commission for Europe and UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. So the other welcoming address will come from our colleagues from ESCAP, and that would be Michael Williamson. Unfortunately, Hongpeng Liu was not able to join us today. He is the director of the energy division there. So Michael, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oleg, and greetings to all participants. And thank you to Scott for his very thought-provoking remarks. I don't think I'll take the same liberty in terms of depth. I really just wanted to thank you all and to really set this scene in context and maybe touch a little bit on some of the Asia-Pacific perspective on these issues. So again, welcome on behalf of Hongpeng, our director who can't be here. Welcome to this workshop on sustainable energy policies and implementation of national sustainable energy plans. So as Oleg said, this is a partnership with ECE and ESCAP, and for us it's a great pleasure to partner with our sister regional commission in Europe, and also recognizing the fact that we have shared members between ECE and ESCAP. So this is really a follow-up of the development account project that we undertook jointly, entitled Sustainable Energy for All in Eastern Europe, the Caucasus and Central Asia. So this was finalized, in fact, back in 2019. And many of you would have taken part in the concluding workshop under this project, which was in Bangkok. That was at the end of 2019, before the pandemic happened. So maybe one of the last international energy events before everything closed down. So it was our great pleasure to host this event. And you know, as you would know, over the last 2 years, our conference center in Bangkok has been rather empty. We haven't hosted any international meetings. But we hope that will change soon. So since this project concluded, all of us, you know, both the target countries under this project and indeed the whole world have gone through this transformative time because of COVID. And it's raised a lot of questions and issues to do with the role of sustainable energy, the transition to sustainable energy. And now that, as Scott said, hopefully most of the pandemic is behind us rather than in front of us, what is the role for sustainable energy in helping us recover from this crisis? So in the workshop today, we hope to discuss the latest energy policy development in the target countries and to learn about some of the opportunities to harness what sustainable energy can offer in terms of our societies, our economies, and the environment as we build back from the COVID-19 pandemic. And as Scott also mentioned, you know, we've come out of the Glasgow COP26 and we have the Glasgow Climate Pact, which was adopted with some new language that we haven't seen before from the international community, talking about the phase down of coal, talking about phasing out fossil fuel subsidies. So this is a really big influence in our discussions today because it underscores, you know, how multilateralism is addressing climate change and indeed the importance of regional and international cooperation to strengthen climate action. So I guess that relates to one of the core purposes of both ESCAP and ECE. Both of our organizations are about leveraging regional cooperation to create a better future for people in Europe and the Asia-Pacific region. So while we work across many sectors, it's really energy where there's huge potential for regional cooperation to help meet the shared goals across the 17 SDGs, so not just SDG 7. And what ECE and ESCAP offer is a platform which is neutral, it's open, that allows countries, whether they be small developing countries or large industrialized countries, they can work together to address these common energy challenges. So just to touch on some very few examples of some of the regional cooperation activities of ESCAP, I'd like to touch firstly on energy connectivity. So we have worked together with our member states to develop what we call a regional roadmap for energy connectivity, which sets out strategies through which the region can better interconnect its power grids. So we're looking at what are the technical, the political, the infrastructural steps needed to build interconnected power grids across the region, which really take advantage of the synergies between countries in terms of surpluses and deficits of renewable energy that allows countries to upscale their use of renewable energy, lower their energy costs, and increase energy security. And in addition to that, we're supporting our member states with SDG 7 achievement, because as you know, there are significant gaps in achieving SDG 7. In our region, we highlight in particular access to clean cooking and growing the use of renewable energy as two particular challenges. So in response to these issues, we've developed what we call a national expert SDG tool for energy planning. It's a system that supports the development of roadmaps for SDG 7, and these assist policymakers to make better informed decisions on how to close these gaps, not just on SDG 7, but also on their NDCs, because these two elements are definitely interlinked. So in today's discussion, we're really looking forward to hearing more from you about the key opportunities, the persistent challenges, and the needs that we have to enable better energy policies to support the sustainable energy transition. We're really looking forward to your contributions to help us all move forward to a future based on sustainable energy and achievement of SDG 7. So on behalf of ESCAP, our thanks and wish you all a successful workshop.
Thank you very much, Michael. So a big thanks to you and Scott for setting the tone for our discussion. I would like now to invite Sergei Tulinov, my colleague and counterpart at ESCAP, for the project that Michael described, to have a few words. Please, Sergei.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Oleg, and thank you, Scott and Michael, for really setting the tone for all our discussions in this coming few hours. It's really hard to add anything since Scott and Michael have already covered all broad issues which will be discussed today. And I'm really happy to see all of you. And in his welcome remarks, Michael has mentioned that the last time we met under this project in the October 2019 in Bangkok, and most of you attended this meeting, and that was exactly in the building which is behind me now. You can see it, and I hope you remember that. And we all have very good memories of this meeting. And I must say that, of course, our virtual communication has been very productive for these 2 years, almost 2 years, but nothing can replace the real eye contact, the real in-person communication in formal or informal arrangements. So I really wish you all the good deliberations and good discussions here, but I also wish everyone to meet in person finally next year in Bangkok or in Geneva or anywhere else in our countries. But today, let's continue working together in this spirit of cooperation which always been with us between regional commissions and members of these commissions. So I think we really had a very productive, very interesting project behind us, but we have very good follow-up activity and good plans and good topics to discuss ahead of us. So without further ado, I think I'll stop now and hand over to Oleg to give introduction to the first session. Thank you very much, Oleg.
Thank you, Sergey. Thank you. Indeed, our 10th anniversary forum, International Forum on Energy for Sustainable Development, was held in Bangkok in 2019, and part of that forum was the workshop on the National Sustainable Energy Action Plans, and indeed, very good memories and hopes for meetings in person soon again. So we will start our first session with the topic of current status of transition to sustainable energy and existing challenges, including the role of sustainable energy in post-COVID-19 economic recovery. Before giving the floor to our distinguished speakers, let me make a hopefully short presentation on what UNECE is currently doing in this area. And I will be sharing my screen. If I can see, that's the presentation. And I will go to slideshow now. So, okay. So I will speak about UNECE's support to member states in promoting sustainable energy policies and measures, mostly through the technical assistance program, regular program for technical cooperation that we have. These are the selected areas of work where we do this: energy efficiency, renewable energy, sustainable resource management, carbon neutrality, energy and micro, small and medium enterprises, a relatively new topic for us, and also energy and women. I'll start with the project under energy efficiency, which is enhancing national capacities to develop and implement energy efficiency standards for buildings in the UNECE region. This project has been going for a year and a half. We are coming to its close in March next year. We have developed a regional gap analysis between the standards set in the framework guidelines, UNECE framework guidelines on energy efficiency standards in buildings, and the actual standards, and also how they are implemented in 17 countries of the region. So this covers Southeastern Europe, Eastern Europe, the Caucasus, Central Asia, and the Russian Federation. There were 3 in-depth studies with the gap analysis for Armenia, Kyrgyzstan, and the Republic of Moldova. A collaborative environment for experts has been developed, and we invite you to join it. And there were 2 workshops, and we are now in the process of conducting national training seminars in these 3 countries, the focus countries of the project: Armenia, Kyrgyzstan, and Republic of Moldova. In Armenia, we had that training seminar last month. In Kyrgyzstan, we will have at the end of November, and in Moldova in January. We have developed before, kind of in the first phase of this project, this compendium promoting energy efficiency standards and technologies to enhance energy efficiency in buildings. This presentation and other presentations will be available on our website, so you will have direct access to the links that are in this presentation. I'll continue with energy efficiency. At the request of countries, we are doing several studies. One is potential for improving industrial energy efficiency in Kazakhstan and Ukraine. Another one is potential for improving energy efficiency in refrigeration and air conditioning sector of Uzbekistan. This one we are working closely with colleagues from UNDP Uzbekistan. There is a major project planned with IKI, International Climate Initiative of Germany, as the donor on improving the energy efficiency of the global building supply chain industry and its products to deliver high performance buildings. Our colleagues from ESCAP are one of the implementing partners. All the UNDP offices in the countries listed as beneficiaries are also our partners, and several other international organizations are also part of it. You see the countries: Armenia, Georgia, Kyrgyzstan, Moldova, Tajikistan, Ukraine, and Uzbekistan. We hope to start the preparation phase early next year and the project proper in 2023. Now this concerns both energy efficiency and renewable energy. UNECE has been implementing a project global initiative towards post-COVID-19 resurgence of the MSME sector. This is in collaboration with a number of other UN system organizations, with UNCTAD as the lead agency. We have developed guidelines and best practices for micro, small, and medium enterprises in delivering energy efficient products and in providing renewable energy equipment. It is available on our website. It is being updated, and in fact, update is already completed and also available on our website. A lot has happened since the end of last year when these guidelines were developed. We have done regional reports, customized guidelines for Georgia and North Macedonia, and also have done training workshops for these two countries. Guidelines and best practices national for Albania and Kyrgyzstan are also completed, and for Armenia and the Republic of Moldova, they are work in progress. And we have a publication from last year on guidelines and best practices for micro, small, and medium enterprises in energy efficiency and renewable energy. I'll move to the next topic, which is resources for sustainable development. Under the same project, there is the second set of guidelines and best practices to assure resiliency and progress towards a circular economy in sustainable resource management and critical raw material supply chain solutions. Again, 6 countries that have either had their guidelines customized already, or it's still work in progress. So Tajikistan and Ukraine completed, and for 4 countries, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Serbia, it is work in progress. And we will also have updated regional guidelines and best practices. We are working on the UNDA project, UN Development Account Project, Integrated Energy and Water Resource Management in support of sustainable development in Southeast Europe and Central Asia. And a lot has been done there. It's ending this year. Studies, workshops, trainings. Beneficiary countries originally were 4: Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Serbia, and Tajikistan and Ukraine were added this year as we had some funds unspent due to COVID-19 crisis. On the work we do on sustainable resource management and women, a study has been done by a colleague who actually will speak today on another topic. So the study on women entrepreneurship in natural resource management, challenges and opportunities for the MSME sector in the post-COVID-19 socioeconomic recovery, with case studies for Azerbaijan, Belarus, Georgia, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan. And the main author of this study is Kankana Dubi, who will speak today. She is also working on a study on energy transition and post-COVID-19 socioeconomic recovery, role of women and impact on them, and she will speak more about this study today. It does have case studies of Albania, Belarus, Ukraine. These are actually 3 countries that requested this study, and also United Kingdom and Uzbekistan. On renewables, we have completed a study, renewable energy financing and investment in Albania, Georgia, Kazakhstan, and Serbia, which serves as one of the foundations for the renewable energy hard talks in these countries. We have completed our renewable energy hard talks in Albania and Georgia, and for Serbia, in fact, it's going on today. It's a 2-day event. The first day was yesterday. Today is the second day. Unfortunately, it overlaps with our workshop. There is a very interesting training course planned on renewable energy, online training course. It is organized jointly with colleagues from Israel, Mashav, and the Aravari Institute for Environmental Studies that will actually run this course. It will start on the 24th of November, will run for 3 weeks until 14 December. It will be 3 days a week, 2-hour sessions. And this was by nomination and invitation only. I now have a complete list of participants. 13 countries submitted nominations, and we're looking forward to this very interesting event. We would, of course, like to have it in person in Israel. Unfortunately, that's not possible, so we'll have the online training course this time. On carbon neutrality and renewable energy, and also on hydrogen, as Scott mentioned, it's one of the topics that may and should help us with decarbonizing energy sector. A project at the request of the government of Ukraine has been completed, improving capacity of the government of Ukraine to develop infrastructure for production and use of hydrogen to support green post-COVID-19 recovery. As a result of the project, a draft roadmap for production and use of hydrogen has been developed. We also had a workshop on attaining carbon neutrality and the role of hydrogen in it in March this year. A study on geologic CO2 storage in Eastern Europe, Caucasus, and Central Asia has also been completed this year. I encourage you to look at it. As the topic of the carbon capture, utilization, and storage is becoming more and more important. A few more words on our cooperation within and outside our Economic Commission. We have had a workshop on strengthening national capacities in applying sustainable energy policies and practices based on the recommendations of the environmental performance reviews that was organized jointly with our colleagues from the Environment Division of UNECE, who are conducting these environmental performance reviews. And I believe many of you have participated in this workshop. It was in June this year. Well, a workshop on sustainable energy policies and implementation of national sustainable energy action plans is going on now. It's a joint one with colleagues from ESCAP. Another joint activity with ESCAP that is planned is a project under UN Development Account on strengthening energy policies of countries with special needs to build back better from COVID-19. Our colleagues from ESCAP will lead this project. We will be an implementing partner, and we plan to have, I believe, 3 countries from the Caucasus and Central Asia as beneficiaries in this project. And finally, the 11th International Forum on Energy for Sustainable Development, it is in an unusual format, in an online format. We don't have a formal country host of the event. It was happening as a series of events from September to November this year. In fact, our workshop today is part of the forum, and it's one of the last events under the forum. I will stop here. Thank you for your attention, and apologies if I took a little bit too much time. I will stop sharing my screen, and will now put on a hat as a moderator of this session, and a colleague from the director of the Energy Community Secretariat, Dr. Janez Kopač, has to leave a little bit early, so he asked to give him the floor the first. So if there are no objections, Dr. Kopač, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Zubinski. Hello to everybody. I would kindly ask you if you can share my presentation, or should I share it? Please tell me.
Yeah, Janez, I think you could share it. If you have it on screen, just click on share screen, and it should appear. If there is a problem, then we can try to do it from our end.
I will try to do it, and just opening it this moment. I didn't know for the regime. So now I'm trying to share. I hope it works.
Yes, it works. Yes, just go into the slideshow mode and it should be great.
Okay, thanks. So energy community encompasses 9 contracting parties, 6 Western Balkan countries, Moldova, Ukraine, and Georgia. And their policy related to energy transition is run by political commitments, Paris Agreement, like in many other countries, Sofia Declaration, this is only for Western Balkans, Energy Community Treaty, which forces them to align their legal framework with European one, and association agreements with European Union. The biggest problem of our contracting parties is carbon footprint. You can see on that slide that it is more than 3 times higher carbon intensity than in European Union, and 10 times more CO2 emissions to create the same amount of gross domestic product than in European Union. The worst is situation in Kosovo, Bosnia and Herzegovina, but nowhere it is very good compared to European Union. Another challenge is our old coal power plants, which emit enormously much more than they should. You see how much the emissions of sulfur dioxide, NOx, and dust are exceeded. These are data for Western Balkan countries, and I can tell you that 16 coal power plants from Western Balkans produces more harmful emissions than 250 coal power plants in the whole European Union. They should follow the Large Combustion Plants Directive, and they should install filters, but it didn't happen, and you can see how fast the deadlines for stopping the operation of individual coal power plants is coming, but of course in practice then the countries, since they have lack of electricity, they simply don't respect this legal obligation. CO2 emissions are not charged in energy community contracting parties except in Montenegro, and here is a presentation how much how much money they would collect by themselves if they would have the same price of CO2 emissions as it is in European Union. You can see that this would be billions of euros, and it is simply a non-collected tax or non-collected income, which of course puts coal-based electricity generation into more preferable position against renewables, and which are harder becoming competitive. It's not possible to do it over the night. We prepared a study suggesting a gradual increase of introduction of CO2 prices. You can see here proposals for individual countries, how to do it gradually till 2040. Another problem which we witness in our contracting parties are coal subsidies. This is cash out of state budgets. And you can see how much money was given in different contracting parties to coal power plants or coal mines. For example, in Ukraine, which has the lowest electricity price in Europe on the whole continent, of course, somebody has to pay the bill, and this somebody is state budget, which added more than 7 euros per megawatt hour of production of electricity out of coal power plants. All this, practically all this state aid through coal subsidies is non-compliant with the European and domestic legal framework. Despite those bad trends, there is a hope. Installed electricity generation capacities from renewables are growing quite fast in our contracting parties. Many of them introduced auctions instead of feed-in tariffs. You can see there are two best cases in Albania. They had an auction and they got a price 25 euros per megawatt hour for photovoltaics. In North Macedonia, even less. It was 4 euros per megawatt hour of subsidy. I mean, the final price was 4 euros per megawatt hour. This is incredibly cheap. So it is possible, but of course, countries have to adapt their legal framework. The problem which we have and which European Union has to solve is that certificates of origin cannot be transferred statistically to European Union. This was once possible, but then in 2018, European Union adopted new renewables directive, which prevented this. This was definitely a step against integration, and I hope that in next revision of renewables directive, European Union will correct that wrong step. Renewables in district heating, especially in Eastern Europe, have an important role, and majority of district heating, you can see, is still on fossil fuels, and there is a big potential for deployment of renewables. Another problem which we witness is inefficient usage of interconnectors. Many of the Western Balkan countries or Eastern European countries are very well connected by cables, with cables from Soviet times or from times of former Yugoslavia. But these interconnectors are heavily underutilized, and this prevents the mutual trade with electricity. Compared to European Union, where the binding percentage of usage of interconnectors is 70%, you can see that in many contracting parties of the energy community, I mean, in all of them, this is well below 40%. And this is waste of resources which already exist. This doesn't need any investment, it just needs to use existing cables better. Big problem of energy reforms towards the energy transition is the price of electricity. You can see in Western Balkans, it is relatively comparable with surrounding European markets, but a wholesale market price in Ukraine, for example, is well below anything what is cost reflective. And this is, of course, political decision, because the government doesn't want to have or to increase the electricity prices, because this would then be a social unrest. But on the other side, they would need to define socially vulnerable customers and help them, instead of having low electricity prices for everybody, including those who can afford higher prices. You can see another illustration, comparison of European Union's retail prices for electricity and electricity prices in Western Balkans and Eastern Partnership countries. All of them are, of course, well below European level. Energy poverty is a huge problem in many of our contracting parties, but measures for protection of vulnerable customers are in place, but not really systematically, and this needs much better, a lot of improvement. Here is an overview of contribution to global climate efforts, but I will not go more into detail because we don't have time. A major tool which our contracting parties have to adapt their energy and climate policy are so-called integrated energy and climate plans, which are obligatory in the energy community contracting parties. you can see the state of play in individual countries. No one of them provided this final text yet, but some of them, like North Macedonia and Albania, are relatively close to that stage. And this will redesign and make more aligned state policy in energy sector, more aligned with climate requests and orientation towards energy transition as well. With this, I would like to thank you for your attention. There are many challenges in front of us, all stakeholders, UNECE, energy community, and many others. Of course, we'll have to work hard on them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janusz. Thank you. That was a very elaborate and comprehensive presentation. So thank you for that. I suggested in chat that if there are questions that the colleagues from the audience put it in chat, and then we all can see and then see which speaker can respond to a particular question. I understand that you will have to leave in about 15 minutes. So if there are any questions to Dr. Kopacz, please send them now. Now we'll go to our next speaker, who was supposed to be first, Mr. Tigran Melkonyan from Armenia. Tigran, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Oleg. Good morning, good afternoon, dear colleagues. I would like to welcome all participants of this important event and would like to give brief information about development Armenian energy sector. Just a second.
Okay, Tigran, we see your presentation. If you wish to go into the slide mode, yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And just to have in mind that we're a little bit behind schedule, so if you could limit it to about 6-7 minutes, that would be appreciated.
Yes, yes. Like the rest of the world, we are going through the hardship of the COVID-19. And in January 2021, the government of Armenia adopted a new energy strategy up to 2040, and which vision is free, competitive, and not discriminatory, inclusive and diversified energy independence at the highest level, clean and energy efficient, sustainable developing of the regional significance, and etc. Here is the structure of energy production, and in 2040 we will have nuclear, thermal, hydro, solar, and wind stations, and you see that the renewable energy part will be higher in the 2040. The maximum use of renewable energy potential is one of the key priorities of the energy sector's development. We have created incentive mechanisms for development of this sphere. The government Republic of Armenia aims to increase the share of solar power generation at least to 15% or 1.8 billion kilowatt hour by 2030. UNECE stations are growing at a rapid pace. A physical person can install solar UNECE stations with capacity up to 150 kilowatt to produce electricity to use their own needs, and their surplus can be sold to the electricity network of Armenia company. Regarding energy saving and energy efficiency, I would like to mention that Now, currently under discussion, the new national program 2022 up to 2030, and at the end of this year, the government will adopt this document, and there will be all indicative and targets concerning energy efficiency and energy saving. We are also carrying pre-work for harmonization and approximation to the directive and regulations under the SEPA within Armenia and the European Union. The liberalization of electricity market requires the transition to the new model, which will improve efficiency of the wholesale and retail electricity markets. With the promotion of the commerce will enable to have new elements of the competitive and the domestic market. And from February 2022, we will start this process of liberalization of the electricity market of Armenia. Research and innovation are of fundamental significance in terms of energy sector development. The government of Armenia will implement continuous programs aimed at science-based energy, supporting new educational programs, new research, innovation, digitalizations. In conclusion, our system will be self-sufficient and export-oriented, high reliability, and equipped with the state-of-the-art technology, modern infrastructures, cost-effective and rational use of renewable energy sources in compliance with all environmental standards. And finally, I would like to note that the measures are also aimed for implementing SDG 7. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Tigran. Thank you. There is a question from Romana Savitskas about whether an interest in hydrogen in Armenia exists. Would you like to comment on it briefly?
Yes, thank you very much for question. I think the nearest future we will do our first step concerning this, and we very interested for development.
Maybe a very brief comment from my side. UNECE will start an extra budgetary project on hydrogen funded by the Russian Federation, and many of the countries of the region will be beneficiaries under this project. We will have a workshop, kind of a launching one workshop of this project in early December, and I will send this information or ask my colleague who is responsible for that to share this information, and you would be welcome to participate. Thank you. We will now go to our next speaker, and this is Ms. Margalita Arabidze, Deputy Head of Energy Reforms and International Relations Department at the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development of Georgia. Margalita, the floor is yours, please. Very happy to see you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you so much, Oleg. And thank you very much and for today's meeting. I'm so happy to be here because I think and today's is very important issues. Also, I'm so happy to see and very familiar and faces. I hope in next meeting will be in person in somewhere and in Georgia also. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen and dear colleagues, and first of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to UNESCAP and UNECE for their wonderful cooperation with us. Obviously, energy transition towards a sustainable and resilient society and has utmost importance for the international and society. Due to the pandemic situation occurred and COVID-19, the situation became more challenging. As we all know, and the international and best practice and shows that sustainable energy development and transitions to sustainable energy and is a step and forward and to a low emission economy, as it's about using energy wisely and using energy and generating and from clean energy sources and technologies. However, sustainable energy development is not only renewable energy utilization. It's a synergy in between and the energy efficiency, renewable energy, technology, and policy, all which requires the availability of resources, proper investment, and strong and political will. Although a common region cooperation should be a fundamental and platform for sustainable energy development. The energy sector of Georgia is developing and exactly in these two directions. Our aim is a full and effective utilization of the tremendous and renewable energy potential in hydro and wind. Basin Georgia has a significant potential of the geothermal, solar, and wind and biomass, and including stock biomass. Historically, Georgia has a good experience of the hydropower development. Currently, 105 small, medium, and large-scale hydropower plants are operating and with more than 3,000 megawatt in installed capacity. However, to meet an increasing energy demand, overcome the winter difficult, and to decrease the dependence of the imported energy and resources that we are developing an additional generation and units. I will not mention all projects and development recently, but I would like to emphasize that in total 140 renewable energy projects and 120 in hydro, 18 in wind, and 5 in solar, so on, are under development on the different stage. Even through an electrification rate in Georgia is equal to 90%, there are still approximately 350 megawatt, off-grid and households with the decision by government and relevant financing, and the electrification program for off-grid and villages were provided by solar and PVs in 2019. It also should be highlighted and begin closure of the forest due to illegal tree and cutting, and this only brings and challenging and for local and population. In this regards and with support of the GGF project, we will start a project to promote a sustainable forest and management and energy efficiency and technology in mountainous region to use a sustainable and biomass. To increase the value of the clean energy export and therefore to support and cross-border electricity trade, and with our neighbors, we are developing a new electricity market model and electricity trading mechanism. The aim of the market model is to develop a hydropower and private sector transmission system and trade and instruments, and to improve a mechanism for investment risk and reduction. That will help hydropower generation to sell electricity abroad and in order and increasing and competitive in markets. We have a development following and legislation framework, energy efficiency law, renewable energy law, energy labeling law, energy performance of building, and also when we have a first draft of the National Energy and Climate Change Integrated Action Plan. But this is not enough. Relevant and operational bylaws and should be developed and implemented, but also evaluation should be given in priority, since without active and public involvement, and there was not be any result. I would like to highlight that in COVID-19 pandemic once again showed us the importance of a transition to sustainable energy development and the urgency and need and for its promotion. With the updated NDC document in 2021, we have taken a much more ambitious goal to decrease emissions in energy sector and by 50%. We believe that the energy sector development in Georgia is promoting and sustainable energy development, but more active and development is needed to respond sustainable development goals in the near future. And our effort and will even and strengthen in the frame of the regional cooperation and with the strong support of international donor and financial and finance organizations and fruitful and cooperation with the neighboring countries. Thank you very much for your attention and wish you a successful day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Margarita. A very interesting presentation about the situation in Georgia, and we certainly wish you luck. And we have seen a lot of interest from other countries in the developments in Georgia. I will now give the floor to Mr. Serhiy Gerasimov, head of the Department of International Affairs at the Ministry of Energy of Ukraine. Serhiy, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Oleg. Good morning, dear colleagues. On behalf of the Ministry of Energy of Ukraine, I would like to thank organizers and all of the participants of today's workshop for their contribution to ensuring international energy security in the difficult and unique conditions of the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, Ukraine is facing the current challenges of the energy sector, which affect the assessment of energy opportunities and needs. In particular, we are talking about the supply of natural gas, the growing role of low-carbon energy sources, the interaction of energy markets to successfully solve problems at the national and regional levels. The gas crisis provoked by the monopolist and escalated European countries has shown that energy security is an extremely important priority for both Ukraine and Europe. Ukraine has already implemented European energy legislation and applies all its restrictions, from the separation of gas transportation and supply to the transparent setting of tariffs. The Ukrainian gas transportation system is a road that can deliver significant additional volumes of gas to the EU. It is effective, flexible, and works completely according to European rules. Our underground gas storage facilities amount to about 32 billion cubic meters, are the largest in Europe. These capacities could be used to build up strategic reserves in case of potential crises, such as supply disruptions or significant price fluctuations, in particular due to actions of the well-known monopolist. As for low carbon development, I would like to say that COP26 showed all of us that combating climate change is on the top of our agenda. Ukraine was one of the first to ratify the Paris Agreement. We have also approved a second nationally determined contribution, which envisages a 65% reduction in emissions by 2030 compared to 1990. In this context, the development of Ukraine's energy strategy until 2050 and the integrated plan for climate and energy development until 2030 are also been actively pursued. These strategic documents will set out the goals of the European Green Deal and gradual phasing out of coal in the energy sector. Ukraine can play a key role in decarbonizing Europe's energy. We have a significant share of low carbon energy. Primarily it's nuclear, but also there are hydro, wind, sun, and biogas. About 70% of electricity in Ukraine is already produced from low carbon energy sources. Realizing ambitious goals, we plan to achieve about 100% in the long run. And synchronization of our power system with NTSOE in 2023 will help us in this proposal. This will eliminate dependence on Russia in the electricity sector and diversify energy supply routes. Also, it will increase the flexibility and resilience of the NSOE energy system. The decarbonization of Ukrainian energy will open additional investments opportunities for international energy companies and contribute to the achievement of global climate goals. Ukraine has a great potential for the development of green energy. Since 2009, Ukraine has introduced 9.2 gigawatts of capacity of renewables. At the same time, Ukraine has a strong agricultural potential and can replace its internal needs for natural gas through bioenergy. The total gas replacement potential due to bioenergy is 37 billion cubic meters of gas per year. The future market for renewable hydrogen and low carbon gases in Ukraine can become one of the largest in Europe. Of course, there are plans, but the starting potential is large. Actually, right now we are developing our hydrogen strategy, and it should be drafted in the nearest future. The Ministry of Energy of Ukraine is always open to cooperation with international partners on the way to world's energy decarbonization. Thank you, dear colleagues.
Thank you very much, Sergey. Our next speaker, we just got a request from a colleague from Tajikistan, Mr. Furugzod Usmonov, to speak at this session rather than the next one. He would have to leave for a meeting with the government. So, Furugzod, please, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Is it possible to speak in Russian, Oleg?
Yes, it's your choice, absolutely.
Добрый день, коллеги.
Good day, good morning, colleagues. It's my pleasure to participate in this meeting, to see a lot of familiar faces, and I feel really a part of the team. And once, you know, once you wrote in the chat that I wanted to speak earlier than scheduled on the agenda, I got 2 PMs telling me that I shouldn't have spoken earlier. So, but anyway, at the COP26, our president also spoke and mentioned that even though everyone knows that Tajikistan is a country that focuses most on the green energy development, still we want to double the generation of green energy according to our national development strategy by 2030. We actually identified 4 major directions, like first to reduce by 10% losses from the energy system, because unfortunately up to recently the losses in our system were about 30%. That was a huge figure, and Tajikistan has attracted lots of investments to improve the situation from the Asian Bank, from the European Reconstruction Bank, from different other donors. We installed smart meters. We tried to improve energy transmission systems, and by doing so, we cut the losses in the system down to 8%. And in Dushanbe, the losses are less than 6% even. So that was the first focus. And the second focus is diversification of energy generation. Again, I want to repeat that even though over 95% of the energy generated in Tajikistan is hydro energy, but we have some issues with energy security, and because we have seen several droughts over the years, and in addition to producing green energy, we need to think about secure energy. And so we want to diversify the energy generation. Unfortunately, our country has limited resources of oil and gas. That's why our diversification options would be coal. Coal is not quite popular today, I know that, but I mean coal-based energy generation. But when safety is and security is in the focus, we are ready to consider this option as well. And we have increased coal production by 20 times in the recent 10 years, but still it is not a huge volume. Another type of alternative energy that we consider is solar energy. And with the support of the World Bank and Asian Development Bank in the north of Tajikistan, we are now planning for installing solar panels to produce solar energy. Again, this is to the issue of diversification, so that solar would be considered an alternative together with coal. But again, I repeat that today, 95% of energy generated in Tajikistan is hydro, which we have to remember. And another focus of our strategy is to increase the installed capacity, actually doubling it. And again, most of it will be hydro resources, and we are going to attract funds for that. So this is not utopic, this is totally realistic, and we are doing everything to attract funding for new hydropower plants, and I think that we would be in a position to even achieve this goal by 2026 instead of 2030. And now, regarding the fourth focus is energy sales. And again, we want to increase the export to 10 billion kilowatt hours, because today we export only 3, and we want to reach, as I said, 8 to 10 billion. And again, we want to connect into the Central Asia integrated system, and then this goal would be quite possible and feasible. Again, we realize today that our region in general is energy deficient at this moment, but in nearest future, once we have the excess of energy in the region, we need to think how we are going to sell the energy outside the region. And this is something to start thinking of now. Thank you, and thank you for letting me speak earlier than scheduled. Thank you for Oxot. Thank you for your presentation.
I just give the floor to Dr. Romanas Savickas, who is a senior advisor at the UNEP DTU partnership in Copenhagen. It's a Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency part of this partnership. Romanas, the floor is yours, please.
Доброе утро, добрый день. Good morning, everyone. Today I would like to speak about these energy-related issues in the situation today we have in this global situation, and taking into consideration post-COVID situation. I will share my screen. Can you see it well?
It's all right. Please go ahead.
I will be short.
And yes, try to stick to 6 minutes, please.
Yes, today current status of energy transition, that we have global energy mix and fossil fuels still dominating in this energy mix. The same is for electricity, global electricity supply, and renewable becomes very, very important part. And as we see in some countries, we have hydro energy, wind, solar, or renewable based technologies. And not every country can have hydro energy. So the share of wind and solar should increase, and it has very high potential to increase in the future. Here you can find the picture of share of electricity production from renewable energy in Eastern Europe, Central Asia, Caucasus region, and you see in Kyrgyzstan, Georgia, it's absolutely different level compared to Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Belarus, which cannot have so big share of hydro energy. So especially for these countries, integration of our renewable energy sources has solar, wind, solar PV, solar thermal, all kinds of technologies are very important. The challenges of the transition are political and institutional challenges, as lack of political commitment, weak institutional structures, lack of awareness, policies framework, financial, technical challenges, as high upfront cost, because if we're going to develop projects, usually front cost investment intensive, and in this case, interest rate becomes very important for the successful project economical development, and it depends what kind of loans we can get. Cheap loans or part of loans should be taken from local market. So all these factors became very important for the successful development of energy-related transition. Economic opportunities, that's rapid decline of renewable energy costs. They became more and more cheaper, and in the potential of 5-10 years, they will become even more attractive. So considering projects, we have to consider that in the future, this cost will become even more attractive. Of course, increasing support and assistance from international agencies also plays very important role. Today, we have extreme oil price volatility due to low demand during the pandemic, reduced energy consumption. We have constrained outputs of fossil fuel generators and resulted in lower revenues. Oilfield services sector lost almost 100,000 jobs due to pandemic-related demand decrease. And pandemic affected health, economy, energy systems. Also, renewable energy can revitalize the economy by creating green jobs, ensuring energy security and strengthening resilience. I will skip this. And what is most important in this role of post-COVID situation into transition to sustainable energy? That successful implementation of sustainable energy action plan largely depends on the human factor, how we're going to implement this. And staff involved in this implementation needs to be empowered by very clear responsibilities, sufficient resources, and good communication. And today, the smooth transition to sustainable energy is influenced by the existing challenges of 4 key crisis factor elements. I have defined these elements as 2 C letters and 2 E letters, C, E, E, C. So transition to sustainable energy is a function which depends on climate, energy, economy, and COVID factors. And if we will track global trends, you may find in these pictures. First picture is crude oil prices. You see from the picture that they almost back to normal. The red is what I predict in the future, and the black is what we have today. If we will compare S&P 500 index, this index is still did not fail, so it may happen in potentially a couple of 2 or 5 years. Industrial production is almost back to normal after this sharp drop 1.5 years before. The same is unemployment rate. very well correlates in between, and you may find that in an unemployment rate, it was sharp go up, and now it's going down and almost back to normal. And in this COVID situation, as energy prices, all prices, and industrial production almost back to normal. So there are all positive trends that sustainable energy transition will have a very positive trend in the next 2, 5, 8 years. Okay, so thank you. If you have questions, please write me, and I would happy to work with you in all UNECE region countries, Ukraine, Georgia, Asia countries, all countries related with energy efficiency project, renewable, hydrogen, and also. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Romanas. Copenhagen Center for Energy Efficiency is our good partner, and we hope to work more with you in the future in the countries that you mentioned. That's, I think that's a great cooperation that we have. I will now give the floor to Ms. Özlem Duyan from the Energy Charter Secretariat. Özlem, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to present today. I will present the key challenges for the development of sustainable energy policies in Uzbekistan today. However, some of these challenges are also common in the region. These findings are based on our regular analysis, in-depth energy efficiency reviews, which we conduct in cooperation with the state committees. It's in order to support the formulation and also the implementation of energy efficiency policies and help countries to reach their targets under Paris Agreement or clean energy transition. The analysis includes general and specific barriers and recommendations specific to each sector, but I will not go into detail today. You will be able to access the comprehensive report at the beginning of next year. Today, I will just go through the main challenges for the development of sustainable energy policies. To begin with, just mention that Uzbekistan is a resource-rich country and has a large reserves of natural gas, oil, and coal. In 2019, their natural gas represented more than 90% of their primary energy production, and natural gas also was exported to other countries, and it was the energy export in 2019 was based on natural gas is 98%, and it was nearly the 20% of the produced natural gas. Although their energy intensity has decreased during the period 2010-2018, this indicator is still very high, which is 3 times higher than the EU average. And compared to the regional average in Central Asian countries, it's also higher. However, the energy consumption per capita in Uzbekistan is 2.5 times lower compared to EU. Uzbekistan doesn't have a long-term energy strategy or no national energy efficiency action plan. Generally, their energy strategy is based on some like a green energy transition strategy or other concept notes. The institutional framework for energy efficiency also has many stakeholders, and they don't have a very good organized cooperation with an independent regulator which could balance the interests of all the stakeholders. The major market actors are owned by the state, and also they are integrated, vertically integrated, and there's no third-party monitoring. The energy supply system losses are very high, but these losses are passed through the final consumers through the existing tariff system. The Uzbekistan electricity tariffs are calculated based on a cost plus methodology, which doesn't include any incentives for regulated companies to optimize their cost or reduce their losses or their own consumption. And these tariffs are very low. It's also common in other countries in this region. So they have a social policy to keep these tariffs low, but it's actually below the economically justified levels for all residential consumers. Until 2018, there was only one single electricity tariff for commercial or residential consumers. From 2018, they divided into two, but the residential commercial consumers tariffs are around 60% higher than the residential consumers. It's actually they are cross-subsidizing the cost of the residential consumers. And it was in 2019, this subsidized value was around 236 million US dollars. I would say that these tariffs are kept low, but there's no particular instrument for supporting vulnerable consumers. So this inefficient tariff policy, low tariffs, leads to many challenges which are all interlinked, that these utilities are not able to have revenues to invest in maintain their existing assets, or have they are not investing in new assets also, or having some using other tools like demand side management to improve their efficiency. And as a result, the private investments are not attractive, mainly due to the long payback periods. The electricity demand is public sector in households are increasing, but on the contrary, there is no available capacity for new consumers, and as a result, there's the power sector for existing consumers is becoming unreliable. So the utilities doesn't have an incentives to improve their cost efficiency of the services. On the contrary, in some cases, the methodology provides wrong incentives, like to increase operational costs that they could justify the need for the regulated revenue. So on the other hand, there's also lack of implementation of cost-efficient policy instruments such as minimal energy performance standards or labeling for energy using products or vehicles. Energy also we don't see in ESCOs or EPCs, green public procurement, or any other instruments such as like energy audits. In the end, just to summarize, that the development of, there's a huge potential for energy efficiency in the country, and there's actually improving awareness on the development and implementation of energy efficiency policies. It could contribute. It's not only to contribute to decrease their energy intensity in the country, but implementing these measures could also increase the potential, increase the natural gas trade in the region, which could help the clean energy transition of other countries. For example, according to our calculations, if energy efficiency measures in the power sector are implemented, it could save up to 16 billion cubic meters natural gas each year, which could be exported. Just to mention as a last comment is that energy efficiency is not only about energy savings, we should all understand and increase the awareness on multiple benefits of the energy efficiency investments, such as creating job opportunities, technological improvements, or improved in the advantages on the know-how of the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Özlem. Thank you for your presentation. Very interesting. I don't think we have a representative from Uzbekistan in this workshop, unfortunately, but I think it was still useful for other colleagues. The last but not least speaker for this session is Ms. Kankana Dubi, a UNECE consultant. I have asked her, because we had Furugzod from session 2 moving to session 1, I have asked her that she will open session 2, in fact, and I now pass on the hat of the moderator to my colleague Sergey Tulinov. So Sergey, the floor is yours, and please remember that Kankana is your first speaker. Thank you.
Yes, hi Oleg, hi everyone. Thank you for your very gentle and time efficient moderation during the first session. And after this reminder, it's really hard to forget who is our first speaker in this session. And I only like to say a few words before opening the floor. And if you allow me to switch to Russian in this session, but before doing that, I'd like to say it's actually there is a tradition to thank interpreters at the end of the meeting, but maybe I'd like to say now that I'm really impressed with the interpretation. It's really good, and I really thank UNDP Georgia for taking care of all technical and everything related to interpretation. It's really great. Thank you so much. So, and having said that, I'm switching to Russian now. Большое спасибо, дорогие коллеги, и все участники.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues, all the participants of this meeting, all the presenters who spoke in the first session. Your presentation were extremely interesting. I would call the audience to send and write your questions in the chat box, and I do hope that our speakers would find time to respond. And now I want to give the floor to Ms. Kankana Dube, UNECE consultant. So the floor is yours, Kankana.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Kankana Dube, UNECE consultant and author of the study, Energy Transition and Post-COVID-19 Socioeconomic Recovery, Role of Women and Impact on Them. Next slide, please. As the global economy slid into lockdown, the green economy lost importance temporarily. Now that most economies are emerging, governments are developing policies to drive an economic recovery. Society now has the perfect opportunity to simultaneously recover into a greener, more sustainable economy while creating new opportunities for building a more equal society. To understand the different challenges and opportunities, the three organizations listed here from Albania, Belarus, and Ukraine requested the UNECE to undertake this study. Next slide, please. This study focuses on the impact of the energy transition and post-COVID-19 socioeconomic recovery on women and their role in these processes. The study undertakes the research to assess gender equality in the energy sector, analyze developments in energy sector, the opportunities that arises from the transition, and how does that influence the gender equation. The study is supported by case studies from 5 countries of the UNECE region: Albania, Belarus, Ukraine, the United Kingdom, and Uzbekistan. Next slide, please. Much is happening in technological developments. We had spoken about this in the morning and in the opening session. This in turn is allowing countries to ensure the competitiveness of their national economies, boost developments with affordable energy, and enhance energy security. The current energy transition can easily be named as the fourth in a series of a fundamental structural transformation in how energy is generated. Today, the energy transition is driven by a complex variety of drivers, primarily climate-focused geopolitical agendas and technology progress. This study focuses on the developments in the energy sector while focusing on the role of women in the post-COVID-19 world. Next slide, please. Gender participation has recently started to feature within the domain of energy, becoming a pivotal point of concern among corporate sector, policymakers, international institutions, and academic researchers. This study identifies three broad challenges that have acted detrimentally towards women participation. Some of the challenges identified are across contextual obstacles such as perceptions, mindsets, economic and soft obstacles such as limited information and training available for women. These are further explored in the study, so I'll limit my time on this. Next slide, please. Just to share an insight and to show the magnification, to magnify the challenges, this graph here shows the share of women employment in the European Union. The women participation in the energy subsectors, as you can see, are the lowest being the coal mining, compared to other industrial subsectors. In extractive industries, fewer than 15% of senior roles are filled by women. Women in the energy sector tend to hold administrative positions with limited decision-making power, while men tend to work in engineering and business services roles. Challenges such as these are further discussed in the study. Next slide, please. The newest trends and developments across technologies such as batteries, hydrogen fuels, smart grids, CCUS are all set to play a pivotal role in the current energy transition. As this progresses and continues, several opportunities currently exist and more will be created for innovation, entrepreneurial investments, and employment. Promoting women participation at this stage will create opportunities for women to become a part of an important phase of energy transition. Next slide, please. The findings from the research undertaken for this study suggest that engaging with women in context of the energy sector can have multiple benefits. They can contribute as skilled laborers, entrepreneurs, and investors in the development of energy efficiency across the sectors such as industrial buildings and digitalization. Next slide, please. Some of the proposed recommendations from the studies are aimed at policymakers and industries. For example, for policymakers, there's a need to develop policy tools to support investments in technological development, to support energy transition, for industries to promote training and development of women employees. These are few recommendations which are here, but they're elaborated in the study. Next slide, please. This study also proposes a two-way complementary approach shown in this figure here to tackle the challenge of gender diversity. The bottom-up triangle, which you see in green, shows the need for action by women and society to bridge the gap of gender inequality in the energy sector. And the top-down triangle, which is in blue, shows the approach for the government and policymakers who need to develop policy tools to encourage women participation in the energy sector. I would like to conclude here the transition of the global energy system is leading us towards an innovative future, offering an opportunity to transcend the current global economy in favor of a more sustainable economy. Equal gender participation in this endeavor can help society lead to a future of technological advancement in the energy sector. Next slide, please. I thank you for your time, and I hope when the study is made available, you will all find time to read in detail our findings and proposed measures to support a more equal world. Thank you so much for your time.
Большое спасибо, Канкана, за эту презентацию.
Thank you very much, Kankana. Thank you for this for highlighting this very interesting and very important topic of ensuring equal gender opportunities for women, especially in the energy sector, which is a very pressing, a very relevant topic. And I would love to have an opportunity to share your presentation with my colleagues from UNECE, from UNESCAP, because we need to involve more women in energy planning. This is a very pressing issue for UNESCAP. So, and Sergey, I would like to make a brief remark, just saying that we are going to share the findings of this study on our website. We will post the report and the findings on the website, and tomorrow Kankana is going to speak on the SPECA event that will be held in Tashkent. This is also an online event, and you can offer your colleagues to attend and listen to Kankana's presentation tomorrow. Thank you for this comment. Indeed, it is very important. We also participate in the SPECA Economic Forum and the steering committee meeting that are running in parallel to our today's meeting as well. So we will be glad to listen to hear Kankana's presentation tomorrow, and we're looking forward to getting to know the findings of this study in more detail from your website, because this is really very important for our region, for the Asia and Pacific region. And with my pleasure, I want to give the floor to our next speaker from Belarus, Andrei Malochka, head of energy department of the Belarusian Heat Energy Institute under the Ministry of Energy. So, Andrei, the floor is yours. It's our pleasure to listen to you, and you can actually share your screen. Yes, thank you very much. I hope you can see my presentation. Yes, we can see it. So I want to speak on more specific issues about how our national action plans, sustainable energy action plans are being implemented, and specifically how they're implemented in Belarus. And I want to say a couple of words about the impact analysis, the COVID-19 pandemic impact analysis on the energy sector. We have recently finalized the study, and you can see some results on the screen. So actually, today the country mainly implement rather costly developments in terms of energy efficiency, but taking into consideration the dynamics of the GDP and the consumption rates, we can say that our economy grows without any increase or growth in energy consumption. So we can compare the basic parameters for 2019 and 2020 versus 2010. We can see that actually today we have the consumption of 2 million tons of conditional fuel. Again, if we analyze the influence of factors on consumption and on energy capacity, we can say that we did not witness any decline in terms of energy during the pandemic, and some decrease in consumption due to energy savings was actually 840 tons of conditional fuel. So again, we need to consider the combination of oil production, consumption of water, etc. But we can say that the developments in the previous pre-pandemic years that were carried out in countries, they can also be seen in the energy sector. So we can say this compensation of about 41.5 million tons of conditional fuel, which is over 12%. Huge investments were made in energy efficiency in the previous 5 years, from 2016 to 2020. So we had 2 sub-programs with a total of 2.5 billion US dollars invested into these 2 sub-programs. Most of the industrial actors carried out self-investments, so they invested into their own development, and yet we also had some attracted loans from international financial institutions, and by end of 2019, $634 million were attracted, mainly from the World Bank and from other international financial institutions. Here you can see some big projects implemented in the country. Many projects have been implemented in introducing renewables in the thermal energy section, for instance, biomass, and also serious projects in terms of energy generation, in thermal energy generation, actually helped to save on imports of natural gas and helped diversify the energy sources. Also, there are plans for a big project to expand sustainable energy use. This is a project for up to 2025, and it envisages construction of 17 new thermal plants and boilers houses. And here we can see the developments in the energy saving program in 2021. So by today, we have already saved about 500,000 tons of fuel. And also, of course, we have launched the Belarus nuclear plant recently, and the energy capacity is going to increase. And of course, this is our plan, and these are the sections of the plan that were set out initially. Again, I repeat that we have already launched the first block of the Belarus nuclear plant, again, to reach the goal of ensuring energy security. We want also to balance the unstable energy sources in the system. We implement modernization and upgrading of transmission systems. We take measures to upgrade the Belarus nuclear power plant. We also implement state and sectoral energy efficiency and energy saving projects up to 2025, 2030. And we are implementing number of measures to improve energy use in cities, by residential buildings, by utility companies. And we also implement a number of measures to develop local fuel using plants. And we have a very efficient project for chargers for electromobiles, electric vehicles. So we have installed a lot of chargers, and now we are in the process of installing high voltage chargers on along international highways. And we are updating our market rules to meet the standards of the Eurasian energy market, and these new rules are going to be implemented by 2025. So that's about energy efficiency in Belarus. That's it. If you have any questions, I will be glad to respond. Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrei, for this very exhaustive review of the energy sector in Belarus, a very interesting update. And thank you for mentioning the impact of the pandemic on the energy sector. And my request to all the presenters would be to say a couple of words about how the pandemic has affected your sector. Of course, it varies from country to country, and the response, the government's response to the pandemic also varies. But I think that there has been an impact, if not in terms of energy generation, then at least in terms of energy consumption. Thank you once again, Andrei. And I think the participants would write questions in the chat box or ask the questions at the end of the session. And now it's my pleasure to give the floor to our next presenter, Valeh Nasibov from Azerbaijan, who represents the Scientific Research and Design Perspective Power Engineering Institute in Baku. This institute is a lead design and scientific research agency institution in Azerbaijan that supports the government in developing the energy efficiency balance. So I am really very glad that Valeh has found time in his very tight agenda to participate in this workshop. So it's the floor is yours, Valeh. We can see your screen, we can see your slides, so you can switch on the slideshow mode so that we could see it even better. Yes, great. So the floor is yours. Good day, dear colleagues. Good day, Sergey. I'm really very glad to see you. I hope that you have been coping with COVID. Since our last meeting in Bangkok, Azerbaijan has implemented a lot of changes in the energy sector, not in terms of renewable energy, but generally there have been changes in the country because of the 144-day war resulting in the deoccupation of some territories that were previously occupied by Armenia. And in the recent years, Azerbaijan has been updating its legislative framework to support energy efficiency in the country. There have been a lot of decrees related to renewable energy sources and energy efficiency, especially in the recent 2 years, which indicates to the fact that the government of Azerbaijan is fully committed to implement the obligations of Azerbaijan under international agreements and the commitment to cut down the CO2 emission by 40% by 2030. In 2021, two very important laws have been adopted. This is a law on the use of renewable energy sources for energy production and the law on effective use of energy resources in energy efficiency. Also, a lot of sub-laws are underway or have been already adopted. All these rules and guidelines are now being developed or being agreed upon. And Azerbaijan is a country with a very high potential of renewables. And the potential is about 27,000 megawatts, mainly solar, but also wind energy. And even though Azerbaijan has a high renewables potential, still today the share of renewable energy sources in energy production is about 6% only. And the government of Azerbaijan has identified the target of reaching 30% of renewables in energy production by 2030, as it was shown on the slide. And when we consider the perspectives of renewables in Azerbaijan, we can actually divide the country in 3 components. One is the Nakhichevan Autonomous Republic that is totally self-sufficient in terms of energy, and it mainly uses renewable energy sources. We can see that 75% of the energy generated in Nakhichevan comes from renewables. Another part of the Azerbaijan's territory is the territory that has been recently deoccupied, and the president of Azerbaijan in May 2021 signed a decree on creating a green energy zone on the territory of Azerbaijan that has been recently freed. And a Japanese company, TEPSCO, has been involved into the creation of this green zone there. And a decision has been made to allocate about 1.4 million manats from the reserve fund for this purpose. Actually, there is a very high potential to develop solar energy there, as well as wind energy. And we have identified 8 zones with the potential, renewable potential of 8,000 megawatts in total. And the president has also signed an agreement with a company from Saudi Arabia, from the United Arab Emirates, to develop renewable energy-based plants in Azerbaijan, to build a solar power plant with the total capacity of 230 megawatts and a wind power plant. And the agreements and contracts have been already signed. Also, together with the International Financial Corporation, we have carried out studies to evaluate the potential of wind power generation from plants installed offshore. So, and also close to Baku on the offshore lake, we plan to install a huge offshore power plant, a wind power plant. And again, we are doing our best to invest international capital and attract private investments for renewables. Thank you very much, Valer. You have been great in fitting the 6-minute time period. Yes, we can see that Azerbaijan has recently done a lot to develop the renewable energy potential of the country. Thank you, and thank you for participating in our events. Wish you luck and health. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And now let's hear our next presentation from Sergei Katyshev from Kazakhstan, who is going to tell us about the recent developments in terms of legislation and regulations in Kazakhstan and the processes in Kazakhstan in general, the processes at the energy market. Sergei used to be in top management of KGOP, which is the energy giant in Kazakhstan. So we're looking forward to your presentation. Sergei, thank you very much. You know that Kazakhstan has a very clear system of strategic and programming documents and policies for reaching sustainable development goals or SDGs, and the biggest strategy is the green economy strategy. And then we have a lot of concepts and strategies to support this bigger framework strategy. We have a coordination board under the government to monitor the sustainable development, and we have global as well as national indicators. The government and central government and local government, also quasi-state companies actually have to shoulder the responsibility for the sustainable development in the country. One of the biggest generation companies in Kazakhstan last week adopted a strategy outlining very clear steps towards transition from coal to gas, also implementation of CO2 capture and storage, and boosting efficiency. Altogether, this ensures the continuous movement forward, even despite COVID. If we look at what has happened in the country in the recent 2 years, we can see 70% increase in the energy generation. So it is 3.3 billion kilowatt hours a year. And so we have 126 generation facilities, 131 contracts have been signed, and these are contracts based on fixed prices or auction, and also contracts based on auction prices. And the auctions are ongoing. 2 weeks ago, for instance, we had an auction, so we can see really very fast development. So what else can we say? In this 2 years, we need to continue developing the energy efficiency and energy savings systems. We need to develop energy audits, state control, reporting, and a draft legislative act was prepared and was actually passed in the first hearing in October this year. This is the law on auditing and reporting. And a new environmental code was approved and entered into force in July this year, and it sets out the best available technology principle. So for 3 years, starting from now, special reference documents, reference books of best available technologies are going to be developed, and then these new available technologies will be proposed to the mining industry, to the energy generation industry, and others. You asked us to say a couple of words about COVID. Even amidst the pandemic, the generation and consumption have been growing over these 2 years. Again, as I said, the growth of consumption is 6.7%. Of course, there are some issues because today we have cheaper energy options from China, but the government is doing its best to somehow regulate this issue. So I wouldn't say that the pandemic has had an impact on the energy sector in Kazakhstan. Thank you very much, Sergey, for this very informative update, for sharing what has been happening in Kazakhstan since our last meeting 2 years ago. And it's really an interesting fact that the generation and consumption have increased amidst the pandemic. And you mentioned that issue with mining. Indeed, Kazakhstan is now leading in terms of mining and in terms of operations related to mining and production of digital currency. And this is really a unique issue. It needs to be studied better, to be even maybe regulated. And I can say that Kazakhstan has always been a leader in terms of energy sector reforming, and you have always promptly adopted best practices, up-to-date practices. You have always been very clear in identifying national green goals and development goals. And even though your energy sector vastly depends on coal generation, Kazakhstan still participates actively in climate-related talks, global climate talks, and commits to phasing out of coal. Of course, this is an ambitious goal for Kazakhstan, but I'm sure that Kazakhstan will be up to its commitments and will not damage either the industry or the consumers. Just a couple of words. So last year, together with our German consultants, we drafted the concept for transition to low carbon. And this is the low carbon development concept up to 2050 and carbon neutrality strategy up to 2060. Because Kazakhstan has committed to become carbon neutral by 2060. Thank you very much for this information, and I think many post-Soviet countries should take your example, should follow your example and adopt similar documents. And I think that Kazakhstan is the only country in the post-Soviet space that has already adopted a declaration targeting carbon neutrality. Of course, we greatly appreciate this, and we're looking forward to further developments. And I do hope that in future we would have an opportunity to discuss carbon neutrality specifically, as well as the developments and the steps that our countries, countries of UNECE, countries of UNESCO, are taking to achieve or at least to formulate the carbon neutrality goals. Dear friends, colleagues, let's move on to our next presenter. And it's my pleasure to give the floor to Tatiana Vedenyova, who actually is an old friend and partner of us. She is president of the Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Development in Kyrgyzstan. So the floor is yours, Tatiana. Please share the news from Kyrgyzstan about the development of renewables and energy efficiency in Kyrgyzstan in the recent 2 years.
Yes, Sergey, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me well. Greetings, dear colleagues. Very nice to hear and see you all here. So let me share indeed the news from Kyrgyzstan energy sector developments after NCAP, so in the last 2 years. First of all, of course, we are a very democratic country. We cannot stop our revolution. It must go on. And we had another overturn of power in 2020. After unsuccessful parliamentary elections, we had a change of president, and we had a change of the form of government. So it was a president's form. It's now a president's over our parliament. Recently, it was parliament over president. So since the beginning of 2020, we've had 3 changes of prime ministers and governments. That means all ministries change names, change ministers, etc. 3 reforms of energy governing entities, and 4 energy ministers versus chairmen. So you can imagine how stable can your development be in this situation. So what kind of programmatic documents have been accepted? First of all, it's Green Economy Development Program and Implementation Plan for 2019 to 2023, which took some points from CIAP and included that there with indicators and terms of implementation. Unfortunately, not a lot of it has been implemented yet. Another news that we have is we finally have a change in our tariffs for electricity and heat. Much as the situation has been described for Uzbekistan, most of the points apply to Kyrgyzstan as well. So with the difference that, okay, over 50 of our total primary energy is imported, and over 92% of electricity is produced by hydro, the rest by CHP plants. Tariffs were very low. So for household consumers, which consume about 70% of electricity, the tariffs are about 1 US cent. And for our commercial consumers, it's about 3 cents. So the last raise basically started in October, like last month. There was a huge discussion on that. There's been an increase in tariffs for commercial users by 12% and for heat by 6%, also for commercial users from October. And from now on, as the program says, the tariff will be increased by the rate of inflation, about 10% from 2022. This should also be good because our power sector is in crisis, and our generation capacities are used fully, and we are actually consuming more energy that we can produce. And due to low tariffs that are even below the cost of production, our generating capacities, our energy sector cannot afford any renovations or additional capacities at the moment. So we have also several national programs, one per new cabinet or cabinet of ministers, and latest is National Development Program of the Kyrgyz Republic until 2026. Basically, it's a very simple one. It says that we have to build large hydro capacities such as Kambarata 1, Kakomeren, etc., which is true. We should, but we have to understand that it will take up to 10 years from now. And within this period, we have to find resources to satisfy the demand for electricity in the country. Implementation of CASA 1000 project to export electricity from our country seems a bit illogical now, but still it would probably give rise to increase of average tariff received by our energy system. Phase transfer to state motor transport fleet, increase of energy efficiency in buildings, development of alternative energy sources. Mostly this is still only on paper. We had several changes to our legislation as well. Mostly for renewables is the decrease of feed-in tariff from different levels to 1.3 multiplied by maximal commercial tariff. There has been a development of regulation of conditions and procedures for implementation of activities of generation and supply of electrical energy using renewables, which is actually the implementation mechanism for law on renewables, the absence of which has stopped renewable deployment up until now. We have some other decrees and changes being discussed at the moment, and all of our legislation is being under the process of inventory, which means that all of it will be changed within a couple of months. So we are sort of uncertain what's going to come up with this. Kyrgyzstan submitted updated NDC, which states that by 2025 we will decrease our greenhouse gas emissions by 16% of the level in 90s, of the level in business as usual, and subject to international support by 36.61%. President Japarov, while in Glasgow, has noted that Kyrgyzstan supports Paris Agreement, and we have vowed to adopt the nationally determined contribution by 2030, which we have done already. As to the news on renewables, like 2 days ago, we finally had some ice moving, and Ministry of Energy has issued to about 20 companies 48 certificates for new renewable energy installations that plan the capacity of almost 640 megawatts, 300 solar, floating photoelectric plant, quite a small one, wind stations, and small.
So have we lost Tatiana? Other colleagues, can you hear me? Because
Yes, Sergey, we can hear you well, but not Tatiana, unfortunately.
Okay, so
she seems to, her connections.
She probably cut out. I hope she will reconnect soon.
Okay.
Let's give her a minute.
I think her presentation was close to the end.
Yeah, she's been concluding it.
So maybe we can give the floor to.
Yes, let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Yeah, let's move on to our. Oh, okay. Tatiana,
yeah.
we've lost you for a couple minutes. Yeah, but please
I'm
go
sorry.
on.
It's just we have snow in Bishkek. Obviously, this influences our Wi-Fi capacity. So basically, we are, I hope, about to start our renewable deployment. And well, these are basically all the news. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tatiana, for this interesting update, and also, for your great spirit of cooperation. You've been always very kind and very responsive to our invitations, and it's really great. And also, I'd like to highlight to other colleagues that Tatiana is also ESCA partner in implementing the project which we are doing in Kyrgyzstan on developing the SDG 7 roadmap, national roadmap for Kyrgyzstan, and Tatiana has been extremely supportive in doing this. And so I hope we'll be able to develop this SDG 7 roadmap, which would also facilitate the implementation of Paris Agreement for Kyrgyzstan. And we'll let you know about the progress of this project, of course. Thank you very much, Tatiana, for this update and interesting information, and also the latest information which comes just from a few days ago. So it's really up to date. Thank you, colleagues, for being with us, and we have another speaker, last speaker in this session, but definitely not least, also a good friend and colleague from Montenegro, who is currently an UNECE consultant, Matija Vadic. Matija, we're so happy to see you again. Yeah, you look
as well.
You look great.
Thank you, Sergey.
Yes,
just
so
one minor mistake. I'm very close to Montenegro. It's Croatia, but still.
Okay. Sorry for my ignorance.
We used to be one huge country.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
That's
no,
because
it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So you have the floor, Matija. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Glad to see you all in this, let's say, online form. I hope it will change a lot in the future, in the following years, and that we will meet in person. I didn't make slides because I just wanted to stress a few important things related to national sustainable energy action plans and what we are doing in the, let's say, European Union. And also what I did for UNECE. This was a study about funding renewables in 4 selected countries: Albania, Georgia, Kazakhstan, and Serbia. It was an interesting study in a way. It provided an overview and analysis of renewable energy sector in these 4 selected countries. But when I started analyzing the energy, or let's say demand side and supply side and everything, I realized that these energy balances and energy statistics are rather chaotic in not only these 4 countries, but most of the countries around the world. That's why harmonization of these things is definitely something that we should all emphasize. And that's why projects such as, I think Oleg also mentioned it, Sustainable Energy for All in Eastern Europe, Caucasus, and Central Asia was an important project, and with really great project outcomes, because all these bureaus of statistics name things differently, saying things differently. Sometimes it's end consumption, final consumption, useful consumption, and we all, I mean, people, of course, engineers in the energy, dealing in the energy sector, understand very well that the primary energy, let's say, is always a primary energy and so on. So it should be, these things should be harmonized, and these things, if you ask me, should be much better and more transparently presented within such bureaus of statistics or the ministries responsible for the energy and so on. Even in, if you check the reports from the regulators or the power utilities, these numbers are sometimes, I mean, in many cases, sorry, different. So in a way, this is, let's say, the essential part, the first step to any kind of energy planning and making energy strategies. Most of these countries had certain, let's say, energy strategy that showed some kind of guidelines on what they need to do until 2030, 40, 50, and so on. And I would say, when we heard also from the member states now in these presentations that all of them almost have a clear target, like, I don't know, Kazakhstan has its zero emissions until 2060, same goes for Russia, and for European member states it's 2050 and so on. So different targets and strategies are there. What is important is to have this energy, of course, action plans. And action plans need to be, of course, as precise as possible. So just to share one slide with you, I don't know if you see this graph. If you see the graph where I wanted to point out the how I mean, this figure actually presents the projection of GDP and different trend lines it was for Albania. It was done in 2014. It's still active. I mean, they are now redesigning the whole thing and writing the new National Energy Action Plan. But this shows, for example, the trends of the GDP, and this ones with the dots presents the real thing that you can see from the Bureau of Statistics. You see that this action plan predicted values that are not in line, but they are completely different than the ones that really happen. The same goes for the consumption. So this is the consumption that grows, let's say, relatively linearly towards the 2030, and this dotted line below is the reality based on the Bureau of Statistics. So what I want to emphasize here and stress out that action plans are not, let's say, something that should be done once and then you forget about it. Something that, I don't know, energy community pushes you to do and then you just forget. It's a continuous process, like the energy management in buildings or industry. You need to constantly improve these models. To improve these models also, I mean, a lot of let's say external experts or international technical consultants are developing such models. If you ask me, you should build such models in a sustainable way, that there is a sustainable component of international technical assistance in a way that you build your own capacities that would then be able to modify models in LEAP or MIDE or whichever tools you use. So this should have been, let's say, improved in 2017, 2019, 2021, and so on. Same goes, for example, for the targets of Serbian, for the targets for 2020 for Republic of Serbia, where their target is they needed to reach 27%, and the renewables were always scattered around 21, sometimes even lower below the baseline. Of course, this is obviously a badly designed, let's say, model and prediction in 2009. This is why in European Union, I think we have quite an interesting, let's say, concept of developing this national energy and climate plans, where they were published, I think, in 2018, and then in 2019 we got the feedback from the Energy Commission, European Commission. Sorry, they were very, let's say, they were harmonized well. So there was a framework which we had to, in this section plans, we needed to focus on energy efficiency, renewables, green gas emission reduction, interconnections, research and innovation, and so on. So and we will report like every 2 years of progress. Of course, in the action plan there need to be indicators, and we will report every 2 years. So it's really good in this from this perspective to have some kind of harmonization body that will jointly, let's say, gather and unify this process. Because in technical, let's say, from the technical perspective, and I always go in this directive as an engineer, of course, then this is all the same, no matter which country you live in. Also, I wanted to stress out one more important thing, and this is that this action plan needs to be, of course, done at the national level, but you should also focus on the regions, because the regions, in terms of regions as a part of a country, of course, not regions like Central Asia and so on, but regions like, I don't know, southern part of Kazakhstan, western part of Kazakhstan and so on, because it's not the same. Almaty, Astana, or Turkestan are not the same in terms of energy, and these are, let's say, the centers of where the transition is really happening. So I think all this energy, also we start from the energy statistics, and then energy, let's say, dynamic energy balances, and then action plans should be done not only at the national level, but you should go deeper at the city level, regional level, municipal level, and so on, where you get more involved with concrete actions and where people actually living. So this is in a way my fast, let's say, presentation without any slides. I hope you understood my message that a lot of things need to be improved, and we have a lot of work to do, I would say, in the future.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Matija, for this informative presentation with this visualization. And I liked really the message you said about that. Basically, energy transition, it's a gradual process. It doesn't just come out of the blue. So it requires very continued efforts by the governments, but not just the governments, by all stakeholders, including the expert society, business community, of course, and general public. And also, of course, it requires a dialogue among everyone interested. And of course, every country has its own unique national circumstances. So there is no like one size fits all in terms of energy transition and application of energy efficiency or renewable energy approaches or technologies. Although all countries are not doing it alone. So we communicate, we talk, we cooperate, and this is really useful, and this is really essential while actually moving towards energy transition. And we are so happy being UN regional commissions to serve you also, to serve our countries as a platform where you can sharing best practices, where you can share the examples of best legislations or implementation practices, etc., etc. So that would also, I hope, facilitate energy transition among all our countries. And thank you, Matija, for sharing this project and these findings. So that's really interesting, and I'm sure everyone who's been participating here learned something from it. And I think now I would like to invite Oleg to this moderation panel. And so basically we've done it very timely, efficient, so we can now turn to open discussion and also wrap up session. Oleg.
Thank you, Sergey. Yes, absolutely. I don't see any posts in the chat, but if colleagues would like to provide some comments or ask questions from the speakers, who have, not all of them are still here, but some of them are. So please raise your hand. And I think there is an option to raise your hand under reactions. Yes. So please, if you have any questions or comments, again, not every country was represented on the speakers list. And unfortunately, we missed one speaker, Artan Leskovico from Albania. He had some urgent matters with the government and he couldn't attend, and he sent his apologies. So colleagues, please well, either what has been said during the workshop is completely understandable and everything is good and everybody agrees and there are no questions, or nobody understood anything. I hope it's the former rather than latter. Okay, may I suggest, if our organizers from Georgia can do it, that all of us turn on the cameras and colleagues from Georgia do a screenshot, so we can have well, kind of a substitute for what we usually have at the events like this when they are in person. So colleagues, please turn on your cameras, and then Sofo and Natia, could you please do a screenshot of this great group? I think we had a very good conversation today and a very good discussion, so would be great. I'm sure that we will be in the same group and maybe broader again and again, as Sergey said, hopefully in person sometime soon. So please, colleagues, turn on your cameras. Who can do it, please?
Oleg, also, yeah, I'd like to kindly ask you and the organizers to upload all presentations on the website, because all of them are so informative and it's really latest update. So it would be great to get, yeah, go through them and have access to the presentations. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Sergey. On that, I confirm that we will upload all the presentations that we have received for this event on the workshop website. You all have the link for that website, and we'll inform you when they are uploaded. I received a speech from Margarita Arabidze. She didn't have presentation, but she provided a Word file with her speech. So also a request to other speakers, if you have something in writing or a presentation that you think would work for this workshop, even if you didn't present it at the workshop, please send to us and we will upload it. Okay, I think now everybody says cheese. And we got a message from our technical support team that it's done. So thank you all very much. I think that's all from me. Personal thanks to all the speakers today. Thank you to Sergey for his great moderation of session 2. Both Michael Williamson and Scott Foster had to leave earlier, but I think their opening remarks set a very good tone for our today's discussion. Many thanks to colleagues from Georgia, the technical support team, the interpreter, and also colleagues from UNDP who made it possible for us to have this technical support and interpretation for the event. So thank you all. Sergey, last word for you, please.
I just second everything what you just said in joining you in thanking all our speakers and also the technical support and interpreters. I think we've had a really great workshop, efficient and informative, and again, repeating it again and again. Yeah, look forward to seeing everyone in person, hopefully soon.
Thank you all. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.